Okay, I've been sitting here for like 3 hours, like literally just staring at my computer trying to think of something to open this with, but I can't think of anything, so here's just 3 tips for every exaltation dungeon. Hope you enjoy. We're actually going to start out with 3 general tips for every dungeon and then move our way from the easiest to the harder ones, so here you go. There are often times where you're just too far away from the boss, and there are loads of phases where you're able to exist just fairly close to the boss without being in a lot of danger. And Deca seems to be introducing more phases that force players to stay close, so I would get used to it now so that you are able to actually keep up with those phases before they add more and more. So experiment with what you are doing and see if there are ways to stay close and be safe at the same time. If a boss has a chase phase, the majority of your weapon damage will come from the boss just walking into the shots you've already shot out. So an easy way to keep doing damage but keep surviving is by shooting behind you as you run backwards while focusing on dodging shots that you're walking towards. Do not underestimate what defense can do for you. Defense is often overlooked, but if you have defense, you can often just ignore certain things. Like NBC spaghetti. For the first exaltation dungeon, we have the Cultist Hideout. If you want to human decoy the red demon's flames away, stay close and wait for the grenade to start being thrown. He doesn't shoot anything until slightly after, so it's fairly safe to do that. After his first radial shotgun, move back towards the middle to be the closest person for the second flame. This is mostly here to keep flames away from the group. During the cultist's shotgun phases, you are able to EP or sit on the cultists briefly before they shotgun. If you are getting more comfortable with this phase, I would suggest trying it out. This is a skill that you can easily build here before going to do things like EP03. If you're solo and having trouble with solo malice, try to drag minions out of the room or out of range of a certain area. They can't respawn if they haven't died yet, so use this to your advantage for less things to focus on during the fight. Now on to the nest. When you're map reading towards boss and you see either this elbow room or this X room, you will be on main path. There are also 5 rooms between spawn and boss. If you have high enough defense, you're able to stand still during this specific blue phase that happens after stars and be completely fine. This is incredibly useful if you are with a big group of players and you stand completely still, which makes it a little bit easier for everyone to actually hit their shots. When the queen finishes her stinger phase, you can actually insta-kill the bees that come out of the spawners. Shoot at the bees to make your final phase just that much easier. Now we're actually going to go to the Crystal Cavern and then the Fungal Cavern, because I just think the Crystal Cavern is easier. This arrow is an indicator for something called a fractal, and if you have much experience here, you'll know not to stand in the direction that it launches. Fractals at the same time as certain mini-bosses can be fairly lethal. Other than going to the other side of the arena, the green mini-boss, or the lizard, you can actually go towards the outer edge of the room and be fairly fine with minimal dodging. The fractal is also a set pattern and can be easily learned. Sometimes there will be surprising spots where you can just stand and be perfectly fine. When dealing with monstrosity, don't go too far away from it. It will throw out blindness bombs if you get too far away from it, and it'll make things like looking for fractals or the monstrosity itself way harder to react to. Going back to the Fungal Cavern, the Child Worm will shoot out a flower-looking shot pattern. To stay close enough to do damage and be safe, stay inside of the flower's petal. Also keep the child in the middle of the room by dragging it back to the middle. During the second to last phase for Mother, you can actually shoot through the head, so you don't need to go out of your way to shoot the tail. Generally speaking, you should off-center your camera because there are tons of things that are just jumpy in this dungeon. If you don't see them soon enough, you can just die, and it will seem really unfair, but if you could just see a little bit more in front of you, you'll be totally fine. In NBC, if you're having trouble with this phase where there are 2 keys that you have to kill, the most important thing is that you need to avoid these 2 orbs, because when they cross over each other, there is going to be a lot of shots that you need to deal with. Just cross one early and then you only have to deal with one at a time instead. In survival, try to be more towards the middle of the section as opposed to the back wall. This will give you more space for actual dodging, but if you want to know more about it, I have a VOD review that I made some time ago that you can find over in the top right corner, or wherever that eye is. With this specific phase, I call it spaghetti. You can stay insanely close by rotating around slowly. This is useful if you don't have high speed or defense because you won't take that much damage, or any damage for that matter. The Void! In the Void, you should always look ahead at the Void entity that's moving towards you. When this is happening, you should notice holes in the shots heading towards you. During the final phase, the easiest place to dodge is actually towards the back of the arena. You'll have plenty of time to react to the shots that are coming from the middle of the room, but you can also see the shots that are coming from the Void entities that are rotating around the platforms as well. If you find yourself dueling, stand on a platform that is on the same side as the other person, but not the one that they are standing on. This will make it so that both players are doing equal minion work in regards to their aggro range. Oh boy, okay, time for the big two. The big two. If you're in the first boss of Shatters and you need to drag Sentinel Rage, stand slightly away from him at the start and wait for the jump before you move. After he is shotgunning, rotate around him for 4 shotguns, and with the 5th shotgun, move him towards a corner and then just walk away. If you're using a CSHIELD, then stand away first, and after he jumps, activate CSHIELD and walk towards the top. Though if you're solo, I would actually suggest waiting until he jumps with the petrifying shots before you activate your CSHIELD, so you can optimally use your eye to reflect a ton of damage. All of the bombs and ice grenades in Archmage give you about a second before they explode. You can use that time to look where you're going before you move, and be careful with that second. Even though you're sickened during Patient, you can actually heal during Patience. I won't get too far into this, but basically you need to have one thing that can cleanse a debuff, whether it be Holy Water or Nil Drop, and then 3 or more healing items. Or you can do this with 1, but I would have 3. And you just want to use all of them at the same time, and that's it. I won't go too much into detail, but basically the server will see that you get sickened, cleansed, healed, and then re-sickened. And you can do this in 03 if you get a sick encounter too, but patient. Also, if you get really unlucky with your timing, you can just fail this. It is not worth staying in if it fails just Nexus. If you get to blinking, it's not worth your character, just leave. And finally, Oryx Sanctuary. Other than Celestial, which I have a video about, Heavens is regarded as one of, if not the most difficult phase It's something that happens. You can actually predict when Heavens start by looking at the random lightning strikes around the room, as there will be 3 before every Heavens walls. Every phase is linked to 2 different pet stasis portal patterns. If you are learning how to push in for damage, this is crucial for your ability to stay in. During Heavens, the middle of the room actually doesn't have any lightning strikes, so if you want a nice place to stand during the phase that you may need to TP cancel or safely cross, try there. Now I didn't actually plan this, but I do have a few tips that I can give for hard mode Shatters, and that is in Ice Apocalypse, the first grenade that is thrown is actually towards the nearest player, so you can bait this to the opposite side of the room and then just go somewhere else. And the big arena is actually large enough where you can stand far enough away, but as soon as it explodes, the arena collapses a little bit, so you do have to get a little bit close. And the thing that'll kill you here is actually the little noodles that are coming from boss, not anything else that's going on, so that's what you should be like hard focusing on. And of course the grenades whenever they get thrown out, because then you can just move away. During Balanced, if you find yourself dying to grenades or really fast explosions, it's probably those ice grenades as well. When you see them explode, do not take more than 1 shot, as in just take the 1 shot and go away. That is all you need to take. Do not try and stay for more. And in Balanced Finale, the biggest thing that gets people killed is greed. Do not stay greedy. Just go in for your chip damage and then get out. Because those walls, if you're not ready for them, they will just kill you. And I've seen so many people die to it, just do not be greedy here. And those are 3 tips for hard mode. Also, if Steamworks happens to come out as soon as I'm uploading this video, which I don't think is the case, it's probably going to be Oryxmas whenever it comes out. If you're looking to rush this, these big worms shoot this blue shot and that slows you, and that is about the only thing that can really do that significant amount of like hurt towards your rush. So that's like about all you really need to look out for. There's so much room that you can run around in, so don't sweat it. It's pretty easy to rush. That about wraps up all the tips that I have for now, at least. If you have more tips that maybe you think are really, really useful, go ahead and just comment it, let people know, and let people read. Also, if you're looking for another place to learn, my Discord has a section where you can ask me anything or just put out a discussion board asking for maybe just anything from a specific area that you may want to know that you like, hey, people know things. So join my Discord. Also, Patreon. I have a Patreon. Also, big thank you to all of my Patreons that you can see on screen, especially my CSHIELD Patreon, DerpEnaz, my Escutcheon Patreon, AR7T, and my 3 Buckler Patreons, Paper, Jack, and gogobean. And, you know, thank you for your support. It means so much to me. And, yep.